Hey, it's Karlie.
Hey, it's Shamina.
And
Emotionful. If you couldn't see, Karlie was mocking me as I was talking. Welcome to the season 4 finale. Drum roll. Do, 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 do.
I was gonna do like the echo, like finale.
4 seasons. That's crazy.
Almost 1 year in, baby.
Yes. So before we jump into
Before we
today's
jumped in,
we want to thank our patrons, Joanne Stewart, Kevin Gallagher, and Therese Gallagher for your continued support. Thank you all so much.
And then also check out our social medias. Facebook is Emotionful Podcast. I was almost gonna say Facebook is YouTube, so that's why I was like, Facebook is Emotionful Podcast. Instagram is Emotionful Pod, no spaces, and then YouTube is Emotionful Podcast. And do we have anything else that we use?
No.
Okay. So hit us with the DMs, the likes, the subscribes, the messages, the comments. It all. We want it. We want it all.
All the things, por favor. That would be fantastic.
Yeah. She had a few accents and languages in that sentence.
What are we talking about today?
Shamina said it very well. We're going to talk about the aftermath of a relationship and the two main kind of routes that people take, and we're kind of going to discuss that.
Yeah, we're going to get emotionally full. Are you ready?
Full.
What the heck was that?
I like to change it up every once in a while. Okay. Are we ready?
Are you?
Are you?
Are you?
Are you?
I like that we do that in the beginning now.
Yeah. I like it.
So, the aftermath of the breakup, the 2 routes that we are going to kind of highlight on today is 1, staying in the single lane, living that single life and not wanting to get back into another relationship, and maybe staying single for a shorter amount of time and recognizing you don't like being in a relationship, you're lonely. No, you don't like being single.
Like being single.
Maybe you're lonely, maybe it's really uncomfortable to be alone, and so, kind of that like wanting companionship sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. So I think everyone knows who I am. But it's funny because, so I was just thinking as you were talking, and I wonder if I'm this way because prior to my ex, I had been single. And I'm a very independent person, I think. And so for me personally, it comes down to 2 things as to why I'm still single. Well, 2 general things.
I'm interested to hear this.
1, I've grown to be content being single. I enjoy my single life. I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. I don't have to ask. But 2 is like fear of getting into a new relationship and it being like the past one, or even scarier, it being healthy and being a good one. Like, so for me, I think going back to like being content with being single, Yeah, I mean, it's great, man. I have the whole bed to myself. I can do what I want whenever I want, or I can do nothing and it not be a big deal. And I don't have any obligations to feel like I have to hang out with someone. And then also like with that contentment, I think the longer I go being single, the higher my standards are rising because I'm realizing like I'm good, baby. I'm good, you know? So like if you're going to come into my life, you need to bring something to my life. And I'm not saying that like I think I should be the same way to that person that I'm with. You know, like I think if I'm going to be in a relationship with someone, I want to see what you can bring to the table. And, you know, because I know what I can bring to the table and I want us to match. Like, I'm not trying to go into anything and being like, well, what are you going to bring? I have nothing. It's like, no, I know what I have. What are you going to bring? And whatever the effort, it needs to be matched on both ends, you know?
Right. Like you're bringing a main dish. You don't want somebody to bring napkins.
Exactly. And, you know, I think the longer that I am single, I see this and then I go on dating apps online because your girl works from home and
We're in a pandemic.
and I like my home. So I be going on these dating apps and I think they're just reinforcing me being single. But you know, so and then again, like there is still that like I don't know how to act if it's a good relationship. Like what's that? And then I think I'm just real quick to be like, I don't like that. You're out. Strike. I was actually with my friend today. I was screen sharing and we were going through a dating app and he was like, you be going through these mad quick. And I was like, yeah, because I know exactly what to look for. I know and I'm like, no. And then I was showing him some conversations of people that I did match with. And he was like, Karlie, so you're not responding to this person because you think their conversation is boring and they're not bringing it, you know, they're not being like involved and engaged, but you're not responding to this person because you think they're too engaged and it's too much for you. And I'm like, yeah, basically, like you gotta have that happy medium. And I just felt like he was too much. He was just coming at me way too strong. And then this dude was like, I was like, hey, how are you? And he's like, I'm good. Okay. Then I'm not responding. You didn't ask me a question. What am I supposed to say? Good for you. Like, nah, bro. You're telling me from the beginning that you are not an engaging person. So thank you.
You're like Goldilocks. You need it just right.
Yeah. But I was laughing because he like called me out on that. And I was like, I mean, you're not wrong. But he's like, so what do you want? I was like, I don't know right now. I don't know. But he was like, you're really quick with that swipe. And I was like, yeah, I know what I'm looking for.
I got those fast fingers now. That's
I know
funny.
exactly where to look on the screen. But
I think sometimes too that the independence can almost be really intoxicating or going back as like a protective mechanism of, especially if you're coming out of a unhealthy dynamic or relationship. And so the walls come up of, I don't need anybody else. I can do these things for myself. Nobody else can provide what I need kind of thing. And I get like that even like in a relationship because we call it like withdrawer. So I like withdraw into myself and then my walls come up and I'm like this strong independent. I don't need help. I don't need to ask for help. I don't need to tell you how I'm feeling. I don't need support. I don't need nothing from nobody because I can handle it on my own. And my therapist called me out on it a couple of weeks ago. She was like, Shamina, you're doing it again. And I was like, damn, bitch. Okay.
well, because it's scary to be vulnerable. Yeah. And then especially when you've been vulnerable and you were burned by it, that's really hard to recover from because it's really scary to give someone that power again, because it is power. You're opening up pieces of you that you wouldn't just give to a stranger, and your friends, you kind of, it's over time that your friends get it, but then like for intimate relationships, I feel like it kind of goes quicker, and so it's like, oh, like, I don't even, but it makes me laugh because when you were saying that about you, I just thought about the other morning when you sent me a text. Remember, you were like, I know we haven't spoken a while, and I forget what you said, and I was just like, you were like, nothing's wrong, but I'll call you later and we'll discuss, or something like that. And I was just like, okay, glad to hear. It's just like, I'm glad you were reaching out, but I was just like, it was like 8:01, which is like when I opened my eyes, and I'm like, oh, Shamina's texting me this paragraph to let me know that she's acknowledging we've not spoke, but she will get with me later today.
So let me clarify. So whenever I get stressed or like life happens, I really don't talk to people. I don't reach out for help. I just go into myself. And so Karlie and I usually talk on a daily basis, if not more frequently. So if we go a couple of days, and we talked about it before, like I start to feel bad, or I don't want her to think that I'm not, like matching that energy or what have you. So I'd send her this message of like, hey, I know we haven't talked in a couple of days. Stuff has just been happening, and I'm acknowledging that I have not been talking to you, but I will make an effort to reach out, something along those lines, because I felt bad and I didn't want you to be like, wow, you're ignoring me, or like you don't call me or whatever. So that was my way of being vulnerable and acknowledging that I don't reach out.
I appreciate it. No, actually, besides this week, the past 2 weeks with work, they've just been so busy that like by the end of the day, I don't want to talk to anyone. And you know how I am, like I'm always down to talk to people, but I was just like, I just can't. So the past 2 weeks, that was crazy. But so keep talking so that we get into our second.
Yeah. Let me, before I get into that, when you were talking about like the vulnerability piece, I almost had this image of, not almost, I did have this image of these pieces of ourselves, almost like our most valuable jewels, and they are our prized possession, and we guard them with our lives. And with our friendships that are really secure and we foster, it's like, oh, you want to see some of my jewels? Like you want to trade, and we do that. And so we trade almost like vulnerabilities kind of thing. But with relationships, if you've been burned, the image that came to my mind was like somebody robbed your damn jewels. Like you showed them the jewels and they're like, ooh, this is nice and shiny. Like I'll get a pretty penny for this. And then they dip and they take that part of you with them, kind of thing. So I'm going to coin that and use that with my clients, because that shit is gold, pun intended.
Well, I like it. And it's funny because it made me think like, with my ex, he didn't meet my Bopshi. She like right as me and him got to know each other was when she was getting sick and everything, and so he never met her. But he got, he got to know how much I valued her, and how important she was to me. But then with my other grandmother, he actually did meet her. And I remember now around that time was when I was realizing like, this isn't it, but he got to meet her, and a part of me, it makes me mad, that you got to know that piece of me when I feel like you weren't really in it. And I think about on my way, because she lives down south, so we were visiting her, and when we went to go see her, she wasn't really like responsive and whatever. But then when me and my brothers and me and my one brother decided, hey, we need to start heading back home, she randomly became responsive. And so my dad had video called us because we were already in the car at that point. And, we were saying, hi, Grandma, like, da-da-da, love you. And he talked to her. And I just remember the conversation because he was just like, yes, I'm going to take care of her, and I'm just like, you little liar. But, so it just like, I feel like now I'm very protective of those things that I highly value. Like like my friends and my family, but it's to a point where it's like I am very protective of them, but also they need to approve of you, because I'm not doing this where I make my decision and then I'm just like, this is it. And then my family's kind of like, okay.
Yeah. And I can really identify with like the, meeting a grandparent or something like that. Because in my previous relationship, so obviously I've talked at length of my grandmother and how close we were, and the loss that I experienced when she passed away. And so my ex, we did like trips to go see my grandparents, or if they came in town, like there were family events, these kinds of things. And spending time with my grandparents meant so much to me, to the point that like when I was in college, my spring break or summer vacation, some part of that was going and seeing my grandparents. And that was like my idea of fun, was like, let me go see them kind of thing. And now, because my partner and I currently got together officially about a month before my grandmother ended up passing away. So he had only really interacted with her, I think, twice. Mm-hmm. And, this is somebody who is both, whatever, such a vital part of my life. And then now I do get really angry, like, oh, my ex didn't value that piece, or they got to have that type of relationship, but my partner now doesn't. And obviously it's like irrational, because whatever, but I still get like fired up, because it's like, well, why it didn't mean anything to you, but like this person, they're like, oh no, we took a trip and we specifically saw my family, and my partner was like, no, like I want to spend time with your family, like I know this is important to you to see them, and really like supported me in that. And that meant a lot, because before my ex would be like, oh no, you can just go, you can go visit them, it's your family, it's fine, kind of thing. And that was hard.
No, I'm the same way. And I think like I don't know, I think you worded it well, of like, I'm just a little more protective. And, I don't know. I just feel like grandparents in general, they're just like this precious little thing, like people that you have to like protect and whatever. And so I think for me, grandparents, you're like very cautious of like who you let around, because they're like really high up on this pedestal, but they're also very precious. So you need to protect them. But you also know like their opinion is super, super valued. And so it's like that balance of like, I want to protect you, but and so like for me now, I don't have any grandparents left. And so my Bopsy, before she had passed, I've been close to her my whole life, but then my grandma, like, you just value it so much more. And then it's almost like you said, you feel like robbed when, or whatever, when you feel like you let this person into your grandparents' life, and then they do you dirty, and it's like, not the grandparents, like not the grandparents, man. But
yeah,
it's just, yeah. Anyways,
shout out to the grandparents.
For
shout
real.
Out to them. They real MVP.
My parents recently became grandparents, and I swear there is a switch that changes the moment you become a grandparent.
Yep. That's what my mom used to say all the time. She was like, your grandparents never used to act like this when, I was a child. And I would ask them, I'm like, Grandpa, why is that? I don't know. That was my grandmother's pride and joy of her life, were her grandchildren. And I got a tattoo to memorialize her. And I didn't know if I wanted her first name in her handwriting, or having her say like, love grandma. And I was talking with my family about it, and they're like, put grandma. That was like her pride and joy, is having that title.
It's true. It's so true.
So, all right. Karlie chose the single life. She is riding that train until somebody is able to bring a really nice main dish to the potluck that she is interested in tasting.
Hell yeah. I mean, I'll taste around. No, I'm kidding.
We get the appetizer, the dessert.
But I'm gonna stay for that main dish.
Anyways, so I think my experience has been being single for a shorter amount of time and then being in long-term relationships. So people always throw out the term like, oh, I'm a serial monogamist and, kind of thing. And I would classify myself as that category because when I get into a relationship, it is a long-term relationship. I don't think I've ever been in a relationship that was like under a year.
That's so crazy. Wow. I mean, I've only been in one and it was like 5.5 years, but
that's a long time for a first relationship though, I feel like.
I don't know. Yeah, I was just determined to make it work.
You were like, nope, we're going. And you're like
I'm
dragging all this other shit behind you. You're like, let's go. So I think for me, so let me preface this because Karlie always wants me to talk more. She's like, Shamina, the viewers want to hear what you have to say. You have to self-disclose. So not in my current relationship, but previously before I got together with my ex. And this kind of ties back into what we were talking about I almost said last session, but last podcast episode when, life transitions, going to college, that kind of stuff. So when I had left for college, I was single. And that was probably the longest amount of time that I had been single before getting into another relationship. And so that was a whole other transition, is like, oh, let me move to another city. And like, oh, now I'm newly single and living that college life. Like, what is that? And that was really exciting and fun. But I can remember, especially at that time, I was so lonely. I wasn't living on campus. I literally only had one friend and she lived in Cocoa Beach. So she was commuting between Cocoa Beach and UCF. I was living with my brother and his now wife. And I was just so alone. I didn't even think about like dating apps. Now that I'm like thinking about it, it wasn't like, oh, like let's try dating apps. I'm sure that they existed at that time, but it was
I don't think they were as popular.
No. And so my whole thing was like, I'll meet somebody in class and I need to have enough courage to like say something, or like any interaction that I had, I was like, oh, could this like turn into a relationship, or like this or this? And if you know me, I'm a very introverted person. I do not talk to people willingly that I don't know. So as you can predict, that did not go very well for me. And I actually ended up meeting my ex through a friend. So it's a funny story. My friend and she was from high school, and I was coming into town because I was very connected in high school. So when I came back from college, I would like go to my high school's football games, or I'd go see my teachers, or, my mom worked at the high school, so everybody knew me, kind of thing. I was a little bit of a teacher's pet, you could say. So
she would go back to visit her teachers.
Yeah, I would. They believed in me. They got me there. They were like friends. My mom was a teacher, so like if we went out, then I'd be with the teachers, and that was weird. Okay, they're like, call me by my first name, and I was like, no, that's disrespectful. I'm gonna call you by your last name because I've been doing that for 4 years. So that's the life of being the daughter of a teacher. But anyway, so I would go back and visit. So it was like homecoming weekend, and I was super stoked. I love homecoming. We always did like the parade thing around the track, and everybody dresses up all pretty, buddy, whatever. So then one of my friends was like, hey, and it was around the time of Halloween. So she was like, hey, I'm going to this Halloween party. Do you want to come with me? And there was another mutual friend from our high school that she was going with. I was like, heck yeah, like, let's go. That'll be so fun. And so we went, and our mutual friend, his roommate, was also going. It was kind of like a group of them from college. So it was like a party from USF. So we were all going to like this Halloween party. Yeah. So I was on campus. I did a lot of stuff with USF people when I was at UCF. We even went to that football game one time, and I'm like, I am not cheering for USF. This is not my college. But
was that around your birthday?
Yeah, that was that big birthday weekend.
That whole weekend.
Yeah.
Oh, that was
a
good
fun
time.
one.
That was good.
So we went to this party, and his roommate, I was like, oh, he's kind of cute, like, flirty, whatever. I was like, I'm single, blah, 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 whatever. So that's actually how I ended up meeting my ex, was, just by chance. And I was like so focused at UCF of like, I'm going to meet somebody, or, I just need to talk to somebody and maybe this will turn into something. And I think I was really eager when there was like just a little bit of interest. I was like, this is exciting. I like this attention. I want to be in a relationship again. I like being in a relationship. This will be fun, kind of thing. And, you've heard the story, 4.5 years later, and then we're not together anymore, if you didn't know.
Well, I think your comment on the loneliness, 100%. I think, because I was talking to a friend today and I was talking about that, and I was like, I absolutely still get lonely. Like, but what I think for me is like, what helps me not kind of like jump in and find something immediately is I'd rather be lonely and alone than lonely in a relationship, because I know what that feels like, and that feels even worse than being lonely because you are alone,
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about that today. But yeah.
I think I was really afraid that I was going to stay alone and I wasn't going to find somebody. And I know, which one of us like has never had that fear. So it was like, oh, this opportunity. And I genuinely liked this person and I wanted to see where it went. But I think there was more pressure from me because I had been in previous relationships, and during that time in my life, I had no idea who the fuck I was. Just transitioning from high school to college, that was huge. I was very well connected in high school, and then I was nobody at college. Nobody knew me. There was nothing. The only thing I had was my brother. And so I think that again brought this other sense of like aloneness, loneliness, no purpose. I felt very purposeless. Whereas in high school, I had a lot of purpose and things that I was working towards or just trying to accomplish. But now it was like, oh, the only thing I'm trying to accomplish is graduation in college. And I didn't know. It's so crazy because it'll be almost 10 years since like high school graduation, all of that kind of fun stuff. But just looking back at the type of person I was then, I don't know if I could have been happy being single because I didn't know how to like find myself or even make myself happy.
Well, I think it's really interesting that you say that, because I recently saw like a TikTok or something that was like, all these things are telling us to be single and find ourselves, but as kids, we're so quick to jump into relationships, and we have our first relationship at 14 and it lasts till we're 20, and then we break up and we don't know who we are. And when I thought like that, I was like, because I feel like sometimes when I think about high school and stuff, like sometimes I'm like, dang, like I wish I would have had a boyfriend, because I think if I would have had a boyfriend in high school, it would have, I don't know, like giving me practice or something, and maybe I wouldn't have accepted certain things in this past relationship that I did. But then I think about it and I'm like, I'm glad that I didn't, because I was able to focus on me and kind of have that sense of like autonomy and being confident in who I am, and not kind of like it not swaying because someone said something, even though I did do that with my last relationship to an extent, but like I also was just like, no, like for a large part until I was like 2021. But also I think for me, like I sometimes am like, because I'm going to be 28 soon, and I'm like, after that relationship and like realizing that being single is like a blessing in a sense, like to be able to go through these emotions and just be empowered, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But So, then I think like, well, because everyone pushes that you should be married. And so sometimes I'm like, oh, am I going to be single forever? But then I'm like, if I am single forever, that's not the worst thing that can happen to me in life. I just think that like the way society is like, if you're not with someone, you're not happy. And it's like, but that's not the case. I'm actually probably happier than I was when I was with someone. Like, I think if I find the right person, I'll be happy, but I'm not gonna just accept someone so that society sees that I'm with someone and they think that I'm happy when
Right. Or your life has more value now.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it's definitely still like, sometimes it's like, dang, I wish I could just have someone to cuddle on the couch and watch a movie. But I guess that's why I have Blue.
Yes.
And she left me. But, it is what it is. But no,
Yeah.
I see it from both sides. I just think like for me, the reason why I stay single, there's just a part of me that won't, I've kind of like built up this wall. And I think it's a wall that I've always had, but now it's kind of a little bit higher because I think before even my ex, I was very like picky, you would say. I didn't really like I don't know what the word is, but like be like wooed by many. And so that's why I think even to this day, I'm like, what the heck was it about him that I was just like like I was. So now I'm like, I was a picky person. I'm an even more pickier person now. So like, you really got to catch my attention. And it's not by looks, it's like personality, but just like,
yeah. Well, I think it's almost two sides of the same coin, that fear of getting into a relationship versus like the fear of staying alone. And, the idea that like I can do this stuff on my own, but also I want to share these moments with somebody. And like, how do you find the balance? And it's absolutely possible to be in a relationship and still find yourself or go on your own path, because I think a healthy relationship has two independent people who learn how to build this life together but still maintain their identities, and it's not just like super codependent and they're enmeshed together. You can't separate one or the other, but that's really challenging, especially when we're younger.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, like we're not taught like, hey, this is really healthy, or this is what it looks like. And for those who may experience trauma when they're younger or have some type of insecure attachment style, the unhealthy tendencies tend to repeat and repeat and repeat until we gain, I don't know, wisdom, experience, insight of like, yo, like, what are you doing? This is not conducive to your mental health, or like, this is just not healthy. And then we're able to kind of go on this journey within ourselves. But I think that was something that I had learned through my previous relationship, was who I was and like my goals, what was really important to me. And I think part of it I did tailor around the relationship because I wanted it to work and I wanted to, kind of be there. I can remember, so I was at UCF at the time when I had met my ex. And so we were doing long distance because he was at USF. And that was really, really hard. I had never been in a long distance relationship, let alone in college. And so there was like a lot of anxiety of like, when am I going to see you again? Like, this is really hard. Like, when am I going to see you again? Or like, I have a lot of free time. Don't you want to hang out with me? And just kind of being like really like pestery and annoying now that I think about it. And what would have happened if I wasn't so focused on, you have to see me, we have to spend time together, that's what's important, that's what a relationship kind of does. And just being able to like have fun and focus on myself. I forgot where I was going with this, but anyway, I was like, oh, energy, high energy. So I really forgot where I was going with this.
Well, I think you make a really good point of like it being important that you keep your own identity when you go into a relationship.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
No, keep going.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I think even with me being an independent person, I know that that's something that I wasn't the best at in my last relationship, and that probably was because it was like my first relationship. But like, I would always want to do something with my ex, and he did have his own identity. And I think now for like this new relation, like whenever that is, I want to make sure that I, stay true of like, I have my dinner dates with my girls and things like that. And like, I don't wander from that, because that's something that I need for my soul.
Yeah. I remember I was going with that. So the identity piece, and I think when I was in my previous relationship, when I finally stopped fixating on the relationship and like, how do I make this work? Is this going to be okay? Is this going to last, sort of thing? And then I finally focused on myself, of what are my goals, what's important to me, how can I maintain this balance of work, school, life, friends, all of that kind of stuff. That's when things started to fit and go into pieces, because I needed my own life. Somebody else
Mhm,
could not be my whole life, and that's not healthy. And
mhm.
I think when we're younger, it's so easy to make somebody else our whole life. Or if we're not talking to that person, if we're not spending time with them, we don't know what to do with ourselves.
Well, I think we think that our partner's supposed to be our whole life,
Yes.
especially when we're younger, because again, like in school, going back to the schools failing us, but in school, they don't talk about any of that, like any of the real world situations, like relationships, because we all deal with them, whether it's romantic, friendships, professional, we all deal with them. And I don't think that we're given enough education on how to manage them. And so then we jump into relationships when we're really young, we don't know how to do it, and we make that person our everything. And then when you break up, you don't know what to do because you've lost your whole self because you gave it all to that person.
Yeah. And that, I think that's definitely reinforced more so for women. And,
Mhm.
like, oh, your partner adds this value to your life. You're complete when you're in a relationship or when you get married. And so I think we get that messaging like shoved down our throats super early. We're watching like
Mhm.
Cinderella, and we have to wait for, or Sleeping Beauty, that's a good one. Like, oh, wait for this man to kiss me out of this slumber, and oh, he saved the day. Like, no, wake your ass up. Like, you can wake your own self up, man. And
Mhm.
so I think we get that messaging so much more often. And then when we are younger, we like that attention, and we like to feel wanted or needed. And then we do get lost in it. And I think that's where a lot of the emotional dysregulation happens with kids too, is because we make our friends our everything, we make our relationships our everything, and we don't know how to focus on ourselves. And so when something happens in any of those areas, we crumble because we don't
Mhm.
know how to cope with it. We don't know how to give ourselves fulfillment. We don't know what self-care is. I was just talking to a client this week actually, and I talk about self-care all the time. I'm like, how are you taking care of yourself? That's like my number one question I ever ask my clients. They're like, Shamina, I don't know. And so we were talking about that. And I was like, what did you do when you were in college? And, we kind of got into it. And I realized that she never learned what self-care meant for her. So as I'm speaking now of like, hey, what are you doing to take care of yourself? Like, what does self-care look like? She has no roadmap. Like, there was
Mhm.
no roadmap established. So we have to go back and kind of establish that. And I think that happens for so many of us because we assume that the other person is going to do it. Well, my partner is supposed to make me happy, or when I spend time with them, then I'm really happy, or I have to be around my friends in order to feel good. Not like, hey, I could sit on the couch and watch a movie, and that gives me the same type of energy or fulfillment, or I could go out and walk my dog, and that type of connection brings something to me. But we place it in other people and other things instead of into ourselves.
Well, I think I did that for a long time until my breakup. And then that's when I was like, I can't rely on someone else, whether it's my friends, my family. But I think it's really difficult for some people to sit in that because I think some people rely on their friends, family, whatever, partners, not only for happiness, but to distract them from the things that are bothering them.
100%.
And I think that's what I had been doing for a while, especially with my ex, with my partner, until I was realizing that he was the root of my problem. And the more time I was spending with him, hoping to distract myself, it was bringing it closer and closer to up to my face of like, and I remember it was to the point where it was like, I don't want to be around you. We would go places and I would immediately like check my phone to see how long we were there and how long. And then I would start like after literally like an hour, I'd be like, are we going home? I want to go home. And I wouldn't want to be out with him ever. I was just uncomfortable being around him. And it was because, I was trying to use him to distract me, not realizing that he was actually the problem. And then finally, when I was just like, I can't do this, it was very difficult. I mean, when the breakup first happened, I had to call you when I was taking a freaking shower. I couldn't even take a shower by myself because I could not be alone with these emotions. But I think as like time went on and slowly now I'm at a point where sometimes I prefer to not talk to people. And I just sometimes like after work, I'm just like, please don't call. Like, I hope no one calls me because I just want to sit and either read or whatever. But also, I wanted to make a comment about how you were saying, like, especially for women, it's kind of pushed more on us, like, to like look for the man to make us happy. And I agree. And I was actually having a conversation with two of my friends like a couple weeks ago about how when they go out, like if they're with their partner, like if they have a partner and they're with their partner, if they pay for dinner, like say they use their card to pay for dinner, they still will give their card to the man for the man to like, and I'm like, abso-fucking-lutely not. If I'm paying for dinner, my hand is taking that card and putting it on that. I'm not making my man feel good about himself to put that card. And they were like arguing, they were like, no, like to me, it's attractive and it's manly, so I want him to do it. And I'm like, I guess I can see that, but like, no, like I'm like, if I'm paying for it, which I think once I'm in a relationship, like I think it should be 50-50. Like if you get dinner one night, I'll get dinner one night, but it's going to be known that I got us dinner. I'm not going to slip you my card under the table to make you feel good about yourself so that you can put the card on the freaking, no, but that's a whole nother, but I just thought it was
podcast.
Yeah, but I just thought it kind of aligned with like, it's almost like women are not valued unless they're in a relationship, but men are valued either way, whether they're single or in a relationship. They're always seen as like a powerful entity, quote unquote.
Yeah. And that's starting to shift. I think we're starting to see some of the shifts, but it's so generationally ingrained in the shows that we watch, in the movies that we watch. I think Disney in and of itself, they've gotten a lot better with like Moana, that was a big one. Frozen, that was a big one of like transforming some of these things. But that's all I used to watch.
Needing a man.
Exactly. Like all Disney movies, I was obsessed. Like Aladdin, that's my favorite Disney movie. The Little Mermaid, favorite Disney movie.
Love that movie.
She gets legs for a man. That's the whole purpose.
But I do think that I agree with you that I think it's starting to shift. And I think it's a lot of our generation and even the youngers that are not tolerating certain behaviors by men. And I think some men don't know what to do because women are starting to realize like, no, I'm good, and like, so, and we're like calling these men out. And I think men are not typically used to being called out, and they're typically used to being able to act however they want. And I recently saw this podcast that was like, men don't realize it's not what you say, it's most of the time it's how you say something. And I sent that to my roommate because I tell him that all the time. And I sent it to my sister-in-law because I was like, I so badly want to send this to my ex, because that was a big conversation that we would talk about too. It's like, I would spend so much time thinking how I'm going to deliver a message because I didn't want to hurt their feelings. And then they would just say, and it was just like, wow, you don't have to be an asshole to tell the truth. And there's this quote, and I don't know if I've said it already, by what is her name, Kristen Bell or whatever, that's like, honesty without tact is just cruelty. And I think that's so true, because you can be honest with someone but be like, what's the word I'm thinking, like,
Compassionate or kind.
yeah, compassionate, empathetic when you're being honest. Like, you don't have to be an asshole. And I think a lot of people are like, well, I'm just telling the truth. Okay, well, you could be nice too.
Right. There's like this undertone of defensiveness, and that tends to lead to aggressive behavior more so, because I'm feeling attacked, so now I need to defend myself against you, instead of being able to like check yourself or recognize like, oh, this isn't an attack, this is just a conversation, and I can approach it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. What else you got?
I mean, I could go on all day about how people deliver messages. I think that's just, like, and I think, like you said, people, like, even if you deliver it well, if they're not used to receiving criticism, which, not to like generalize, but I do think most men are not used to receiving like criticism, whether, even if it's constructive, because for so long it was just whatever the man says is correct and we don't correct them. But it's now getting into a phase where it's like, no, I will correct you, but they don't know how to take it. And like, I see these TikToks all the time and I'm like, yes, of like, it'll be like, oh, men think women are emotional, but how do men act when they're told something they don't want to be told? And it's like, women just know how to express different types of emotion, but men don't. So all of their emotion is rage. And it's like, that's still emotion. Like, just because they don't cry doesn't mean that men aren't emotional. They're just don't know how to handle their emotions. So when they get angry, they like punch a wall. And it's like, oh, but men aren't emotional. And I'm like, it's really true. Like, I know so many men that like, they'll be like, why are you so emotional? And then I'm like, oh, but you just punched a wall or called someone a bitch because they said something you didn't like.
Right.
But I'm emotional. Like,
and we've talked before how like anger is a masking emotion, so it usually masks everything that's like underneath, and it's armor for people, and that leads to like the defensiveness or feeling challenged. And if you've grown up in a family and you believe you've assumed this type of role, and then somebody comes in and challenges that role or challenges what a lot of us, we don't know how to navigate that type of conversation, or how to even acknowledge that we've hurt somebody or we said something in the wrong way. And we really start to dig our heels in at times of like, no, I didn't say that. Or we dismiss somebody or invalidate them, instead of just being able to say like, yeah, your experience is valid, I didn't, that wasn't my intention, but I can understand where you're coming from. But instead, like, no, we can't be wrong.
Well, I think it's, one, not wanting to be wrong, but two, no one wants to be vulnerable, because again, like you said, we're not willing to offer up jewels if no one's going to trade with us. And so I think that comes down to it too. And I think that's why so much anger comes out, because, at the end of the day, it's because we don't want to be vulnerable. Maybe we don't know how to be vulnerable. No one's shown us. Or again, we just see vulnerability as weakness. And we're not weak. I'm not weak. But actually that's being strong, of like putting down your guard and being like, you know what, you really hurt my feelings. But that's not how we're raised. So it is seen as a weakness. And I think like, for me, like, again, like, that's a huge part of me still being single. And like, I recently like kind of was talking to someone, and I ended it. And I think I ended it because I wasn't ready to be vulnerable. That was scary. And also I didn't know how to react to someone like being open. and like actually listening and willing to understand me, because he was very like understanding and sensitive, and I was just like, I don't know what to say, like I for so long was used to having to chase someone to show them my worth, and then there was someone here in front of me telling me, hey, I see you're worthy, and I'm willing to wait and do what I need to do. And I was just like, that's weird.
That's off the alarm bells. Like, I need to run. That is uncomfortable.
Yeah, like someone is telling me they like me, and I'm not chasing them. But also I think, and I told you, I think it kind of made me realize that I still have work that I need to do, because a part of me is still mad at my ex. And I don't think I realized how upset I still am until like that situation happened, because I think that situation made me realize like I can't even move on yet because I'm still mad at you. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like I'm mad for a lot of reasons. Of like I'm mad that like you ruined it, like it's your fault. You ruined this. This could have been something, but you ruined it, And then also like I think lately too, I'm very curious like about their life. And it's just, I'm very curious. Like there have been parts of me that just want to reach out. I won't, but parts like that, I'm just like, I just want to like know, like what, why? Like why, like why?
Yeah. Stay tuned for our season 5 finale, premiere, where we'll get Karlie to elaborate a little bit on these things. But there was something that you had said that I wanted to touch on. Oh, what was it? Oh, that I think, and we talked about it before, you and I have, of some of your healing, or just anybody's healing, may not be able to happen unless you're dating with somebody else, because there's no way you would have been able to anticipate or plan for feeling that way if you never put yourself out there. And so I was just talking actually with a client recently about, we call it like a corrective emotional experience, which is basically like what you had with this one person that you were talking with, of, you were being vulnerable and he held space for you. He was understanding. He wasn't dismissive. And that showed you somebody can do that. It was very strange, very uncomfortable, but you had a different type of emotional experience in that moment. And that in and of itself is a form of healing, being able to recognize like this can be different, but that can only happen through somebody else's interaction. You can only do so much healing individually until, it's my cat, she wants to get in. She like does this thing where she goes like this and it looks like she's swimming. So she does that when she wants in. I'm trying to ignore her. So anyway, there's only so much healing I think an individual can do until they do get into a relationship and these triggers come up or these things come up, and you wouldn't have known it if you just stayed by yourself. So I think it's been, from my perspective, a helpful journey for you to recognize like, hey, this is where I'm at, or I'm not ready for this, or I still have work to do, kind of thing. But if that never happened, you wouldn't have known, or maybe you would have, but it just would have been different.
No, I absolutely agree. But it's hard to take those steps. But I will say too, when you know that the person is like, it feels right, I think though going through those healing is easier, or you're more willing to do it, whereas like for me, like, yeah, this person was showing all of these great qualities, but I still felt like it wasn't right. And I think that's why I didn't like continue that journey. But going through that initial, like you said, did help me recognize like, because, I don't think I would have been able to acknowledge that I'm still like kind of upset, like I'm still kind of like,
a little peeved.
Yeah, like still getting under my skin a little bit.
Yes, and we'll get into that in a couple soon, very soon.
You guys will find out how I've been stalking him. No, just kidding. kidding. Just
Hired a
kidding.
PI. We got a folder we got to go through. No,
Oh my God. If that happens, then I need help.
I would commit you.
Yeah.
Have
There
an
have been times
intervention.
though where I'm what? An
Have an
intervention.
intervention.
There have been times where I'm like, because we obviously still live in like the same city, that I'm like, I know a few places that I know if I went, I'm pretty positive that I could find them there at a certain time.
Get
But
you
I
a
don't.
wig. We'll do outfit.
Oh God.
That would be fun.
No. That would not be funny. I'd probably have a heart attack. Why would I openly try to run into them?
Listen, I don't know. You're the one thinking about it, not me.
I'm not. I'm not. Right hand up.
All right. Are you all feeling emotionally full?
Are you?
Are you?
Are you?
We, not even we. I think we, but I still speak for I. I can't believe, one, that it's been a year. Two, that we've done 4 seasons. That's just crazy. And just even, and we'll get into this a little bit more during our season 5 premiere, but I am just really grateful for, and we talk about this all the time, but doing this podcast with you, Karlie, and it gives me something to look forward to, just to have this conversation, being able to normalize these things, but also to the people who continue to listen and support us, and they get something out of it. And that's ultimately why we're doing this. So my heart is full of gratitude today.
Well, I agree. And I think it's funny how we say we need to like have our own identity. And I really think that this podcast helped me form one. And I remember a while ago when I first started going out on dates and someone asked me to like postpone or cancel a podcast recording, and I was like, absolutely not. This is important to me. It's been going on in my life for however long, and you're new. I don't know you. And he got really upset, and I was like, that really shows me something, that this is the first date and you're upset that I won't continue out on this date with you because I already have prior plans. Like, to me now, I'm realizing like that is huge. Like, don't ask me to compromise myself, especially when I just met you, like, so if we were to have a relationship, what else are you wanting me to give up?
Right.
Like, don't get me wrong, there's a balance and everything like that. But like immediately, bro, you're asking me to cancel. I was like, no. And obviously that didn't go anywhere, but he was like upset. And I was just like, SMD, bro. SMD. But but yeah, I'm super grateful for this podcast because, like, one, I think there are people out there that listen to us, and two, it's helped me form this identity of a dedication, consistency, and it's just like, this is now something that I'm very passionate about. Like you said, I look forward to it. I know this is something that we do weekly, and it's just it's something for me. I do it for me, and yeah.
I like it. We will be taking a 2-week break, and we are going to be returning with season 5, which will be our year anniversary episode. So the first episode of season 5. It's going to be Tuesday, April 12th.
Okay, did we agree that we're going to listen to the first episode? And
yes. So between now and April 12th, Karlie and I are going to listen to that first episode and give our feedback during that season.
A year ago, I could have quoted that word for word. I listened to it a million times because I was so nervous, and now I don't remember what I said.
So we will give our feedback during the season 5 premiere, and just kind of reflecting more so on the past year and things that we've grown into, learned, all of that kind of fun stuff. So stay tuned. We will still be active on our socials for the next couple of weeks. So we will not be MIA, but we will be around.
I'm gonna say I still agree with myself from episode 1, but I guess we'll find out.
I'm interested. The only thing I remember of episode 1 is I kept thinking, damn, I really did not speak. Because I remember I had reached out to you afterwards and I was like, I need to talk more. You talked all like the whole time, but I think you needed it. And then the second episode was like more about me. So I think that will also be apparent. Was like, God damn, Karlie, we have gotten a much better flow between the two of us now than we did in that first episode because you went in.
Yeah, I think I just had a lot to get off of my chest.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
So stay tuned. We will see you all Tuesday, April 12th for our season 5 premiere, which will be our anniversary episode. So you don't want to miss it.
So stay tuned, keep up with our socials, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.